All right, so this is going to be a really quick video, like a really quick video. So in anticipation of this discussion that I'm going to be having on Thursday at 7 p.m. on Pastor Tommy McMurtry's podcast, I was interested in looking at a couple of the pastors that he was associating with on his podcast that I had never really looked at. And I had gone to Revival Baptist Church, which is Pastor Patrick Boyle's congregation. It's his church, right? I didn't do it on my computer, but I did do it on my phone. And I looked up the Trinity and I couldn't find anything. And it looks like even on my computer here, I'm not really finding anything, but I do find it hard to believe that he has never preached on it. So, honestly, at this point, I'll be honest, I think that's actually a good sign. But I just subbed and I put on notifications because I like to hear preaching and I am trying to reprove the Trinity, obviously. Like that's what I'm trying to do. So I watched this video, and I'll be nice to Luis Mendez, who I can clearly see here. I'll be nice, even though he has not been very nice to me in the past. But I saw this video and I wanted to talk about it. It's a little short, so let's just get right into it.
There are many people and many Baptist churches all over this country where the people of the church have taken their American ideology and they've Americanized the church. Did you see where it says in this verse that they that watch for our souls have the rule over us? So where is this mentality coming from that says, no, the church has majority rule and we set up a committee and we vote on everything and we hinder the leadership and we shackle the progress and we hold everything back because we can't agree on what direction we want to see the church go in?
So of course, like it's a false dichotomy because he's right. You don't want the congregation of the layman, just making the decisions. The church won't last very long. So he's right. Okay, there shouldn't be a committee of random people that make decisions. That is correct. But notice how he stuttered over verse 17 because of the word they, or rather them. It says, obey them that have the rule over you. Now, if you go to his church website, it says Pastor Hugo Moreno. So he's the guy who is doing the Spanish part. And then there's Pastor Patrick Boyle. But Scott Campbell is the deacon, and he is the one who is preaching here. And honestly, he sounds like a rabid dog. He sounds like Steven Anderson, and he sounds like somebody who is just trying to get other men to submit to him. But what does the Bible have to say about this? Well, in Hebrews 13:17, it says, obey them that have the rule over you and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls as they that must give account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you. And this is the verse that he's twisting, okay? Because this verse does not apply to him, okay? He should not have rule over anybody. He looks like he's younger than me. He's a pretty young guy, dude. There's no way that guy is over 40 years old. Yet what does the Bible say in regards to the qualifications of those that are to actually bear rule in the church? See, the Baptists falsely equate pastor with bishop and with elder because in many regards they are illiterate and agenda-based. But we're going to keep reading what he has to say in the full context here. It's a short, and we will take it from there.
Is that what the Bible teaches? Or does the Bible teach that leadership is somebody that we
See what he did there?
as the church and in the congregation should obey?
See, that's not how you talk to people from behind a pulpit, okay? There's no spirit here. There's no spirit of God in this man. I'm not saying there's no spirit of God in this man. I'm saying there's no spirit of God operating through this man at this time. Obviously, he's just yelling at men and telling them that they need to submit, and he's pretending like the Bible says it, but he's a liar, because look at what he just said. Listen very carefully.
Or does the Bible teach that leadership is somebody that we...
Leadership is somebody? No, leadership is not somebody. Okay, let's go back to what he was stumbling over before.
The church, did you see where it says in this verse that they that watch for our souls have the rule over us?
You notice how he had to pause there. I don't know, maybe I'm just speculating, but regardless of the pause and what that may indicate, he quoted the verse correctly using a plural personal pronoun, or a plural pronoun, they, which is a reference to them. Okay, now that's not the case in modern churches where you have a multiplicity of people bearing rule. Okay, that's not what we see. But I'm gonna again let the video finish.
Somebody that we as the church and in the congregation should obey, because they have the rule over us. How do they rule if majority rules? Where?
So again, that's a false dichotomy. The majority does not rule. The majority should not rule. And I don't know how he's claiming that that's Americanism. America is not a democracy. It's a constitutional republic. But what he's describing is just a flat, bare bones democracy.
Is that coming from? Where is the church constitution coming from? Where are the committees coming from? Where is this town hall Americanism coming from? And why is it in the church?
All right. So let's look at what Christ had to say specifically about leadership in the church. All right. Matthew chapter 20 and verse 20. It says, then came to him the mother of Zebedee's children with her sons, worshiping him and desiring a certain thing of him. And he said unto her, what wilt thou? She saith unto him, grant that these my two sons may sit, the one on thy right hand and the other on thy left in thy kingdom. So is that really the mother's desire? Maybe, but I believe that it was John and James's desire, right? Also, like they were going along with it, but they had their mom help them out. I find it funny. I'm pretty sure that, I don't know. Hold on. Let me see here. I don't think that this is recorded in John's gospel. Perhaps it is. Yeah, it's not. Maybe there's a reason. I don't know, but I find that interesting. Yeah, this is talking about John. In verse 22, it says, but Jesus answered and said, ye know not what ye ask. Are ye able to drink of the cup that I shall drink of, and to be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? They say unto him, we are able. So number one, it shows that being on someone's right hand means that you are to be baptized with the person on the throne. We'll leave that aside, okay? And he saith unto them, ye shall drink indeed of my cup and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with, but to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but it shall be given to them for whom it is prepared of my Father. So Zebedee's children and this woman, right, are trying to get authority and power for these two disciples. So this is a direct statement regarding authority of God's people amongst God's people. This is very applicable to what this very aggressive, froward, angry guy was saying, right? Look here in verse 24. It says, and when the 10 heard it, they were moved with indignation against the two brethren, which makes sense, right? Like they had their mom come help them out and stuff. And I understand, right? But Jesus called them unto him and said, ye know that the princes of the Gentiles. Now, when the Bible uses the word princes, it's talking about a principality, like not necessarily, not an angel or anything like that, or a demon or anything like that, but it's just talking about someone in leadership, right? When Jesus is called the Prince of Peace, it's not because there's a king above him or anything like that. It's because he is a prince, meaning that he is a governor. He is a ruler. A prince is a ruler in the Bible. So the princes or the rulers of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, right? Isn't that kind of what Scott Campbell is talking about here? Yeah, it is exactly what he's talking about. And yet he's saying that Americanism has entered into the church where it's like more of like a democracy, a liberal democracy, which is incorrect, right? There shouldn't be a committee of like laymen or anything like that. That's also like, so what he's preaching against is false, but what he's advocating for is also false, right? So he's not really helping anything. But Jesus said, in regards to the context here, he said, you know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. But it shall not be so among you. How much clearer does Jesus have to be, Mr. Scott Campbell? How much clearer? He literally says, hey, look, you know, the rulers of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon even the rulers. But in my church, God says, it shall not be so among you, but whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. He says, look, if you want to be the greatest Christian, you need to be the biggest servant of everybody. And whosoever will be chief among you, if you want to be the chief, Scott, which is very clear that you want to be the chief, look at your body language, listen to how you were talking. You love and greatly desire that authority, and it's very obvious. And the thing about the Bible is that 9 times out of 10, in fact, I would say, I'll be safe and say that the person put in authority doesn't want it. Moses didn't want to do what God called him to do because he was humble and meek. Gideon did not want to do what he was told to do. He didn't want to rule over the children of Israel as their king. And this little parable here in Judges 9 is very interesting to me. It's right after they had slain a man and slain several men, actually, all the brethren of Gideon. And then they set up this king. And verse 7, it says, and when they had told it to Jotham, he went and stood in the top of Mount Gerizim and lifted up his voice and cried and said unto them, hearken unto me, ye men of Shechem, that God may hearken unto you. The trees went forth on a time to anoint a king over them. And they said unto the olive tree, reign thou over us. So they go to the olive tree. They're like, come reign over us. But the olive tree said unto them, should I leave my fatness, wherewith by me they honor God and man, and go to be promoted over the trees? And the tree said to the fig tree, come thou and reign over us. But the fig tree said unto them, should I forsake my sweetness and my good fruit and go to be promoted over the trees? Then said the trees unto the vine. So they're like, all right, look, the olive tree, that's the chief tree, right? Because, I mean, not only does it produce berries, but it produces oil. Okay, that's why it said, should I leave my fatness? But the fig trees, now that's a little step down. But, I mean, there's delicious sweet fruit. You can make pastries and yummy jams and stuff, right? But now we're getting a little bit lower on it. We keep going down. Like their desire for the leader, the tree's desire, or rather who they want to rule over them, is getting weaker and weaker as time goes on, right? Verse 12, then said the trees unto the vine, come thou and reign over us. And the vine said unto them, should I leave my wine, which cheereth God and man, and go to be promoted over the trees? Then said all the trees unto the bramble, come thou and reign over us. So like the brambles is just, that's like a bush. Okay. What does a bramble produce? Nothing. It doesn't do anything. So of course it's going to be all right with like ruling. And the bramble said unto the trees, if in truth ye anoint me king over you, then come and put your trust in my shadow. And if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. So this person, or rather these trees, wanted an olive tree. They didn't. The olive tree was like, no. Fig tree was like, no. The vine, no. The garbage, trash bramble, that's a very froward, aggressive, violent person, you can tell. He said, come and put your trust in my shadow. So this person wants to be elevated. This bramble wants the elevation. They want people to trust in their dominion, their power, their shadow. And if not, right, and if you don't, right, so I'll rule over you, but listen, you're going to do what I say, and if not, let fire come out of me, out of the bramble, and devour the cedars of Lebanon. Now, if you know the Bible, you know the cedars of Lebanon are very tall, thick trees. in order to devour the cedars of Lebanon. That is a raging fire. The point here is that these trees, which is a euphemism for God's people, they wanted a ruler over them. They wanted the best first, and then they kept settling until they got trash. And that's what we see here. We see somebody misusing and twisting the Bible, okay, in order to exercise dominion over his brethren. Okay, but Jesus said, ye know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them, but it shall not be so among you. But whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister, and whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant, even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many. So we ought to be acting like Jesus. Jesus didn't act this way. He's acting like Steven Anderson. That's who he's acting like. All right. And it's honestly, it's cringe. It's 2026. That's cringe. That's massively cringe. And then you say, well, Kyle, we don't really care about Matthew 20 because, he's an elder. He's an elder. So, you're supposed to submit to your elders. And what about that verse in Hebrews 13:17 that you already closed out of, huh? Well, when it says obey them that have the rule over you, it's not talking about people like Scott Campbell. It's talking about old people. It's talking about bishops that are elders. See, in 1 Timothy 5:17, it says, let the elders that rule well be counted worthy of double honor, especially they who labor in the word and doctrine. Okay. And people say, well, the word elder just is a synonym for pastor, except it's literally not, ever. And the word elder always is indicative of age every single time. Look at verse 19. It says, against an elder receive not an accusation, but before 2 or 3 witnesses. Now, somebody like Scott Campbell, if somebody in the church was like, hey, dude, he was talking to my wife, God forbid, right? I'm just using that as an example. He would probably argue like, hey, you can't make that accusation. You need 2 or 3 witnesses. But that's erroneous because he's not an elder. It says against an elder receive not an accusation. And you say, well, yeah, he's clearly wrong. Okay, well, why don't we go up to verses 1 and 2 in this same chapter, and you tell me how elder somehow means something different here? Wouldn't it be, according to the law of first mention, the first time something is mentioned, especially in a chapter, if that word is used 4 times or more, that the first time it's appeared, that it would most likely be used in its proper context? I don't know. Maybe I'm using too much logic and reasoning there. I'm not sure. But 1 Timothy 5 says in verse 1, rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father. Now they love this verse because they don't want to be corrected. That's why I spend my time on YouTube correcting these heretics, these people, these evil, awful people. And they're awful people. Just look at the froward way that he was talking to. Like those are human beings that he's talking to, bro. Okay. And he was talking to them like he was rebuking them. They're just sitting there listening, trying to be fed spiritual meat, and they're just being screamed and yelled at by this psycho lunatic. But rebuke not an elder. You can't say that to him if you're part of that congregation, because if you did and said, hey, man, I didn't really like the way you were preaching today. Like, first of all, I don't think that's correct, but, et cetera, et cetera. But he's the deacon. You would get cast out of this church. You would not be able to do that. Even though you would be correct, you would be closer to God in doing so. You would be the one cast out and not the froward, evil person who is twisting the Bible to say that he has more authority than he actually has. Now, this person is not a deacon. They're a pastor. Okay? They're operating as a pastor. A pastor is a teacher. That's it. That's all it is. So he's pastoring terribly. Awfully even. But a pastor is just a teacher. Okay? They are teaching the pasture. And also a bishop is a pastor as well, always. But a pastor is not always a bishop. See, you can meet the qualifications to be a pastor and not meet the qualifications to be a bishop. Now, I didn't have this in my notes or anything. I haven't gone to these in a while, so I hope that I can find them. Okay, so that's not it. Hold on. Take no wife, Jeremiah. So in the book of Jeremiah, it was there. I don't know why I couldn't find it. Anyway, it says, thou shalt not take thee a wife, neither shalt thou have sons or daughters in this place. So God is telling Jeremiah, hey, listen, I'm about to destroy this city. I'm going to absolutely annihilate Jerusalem, and I do not want you to take a wife, don't have sons or daughters in this place. So does he meet the qualifications of 1 Timothy 3 to be a bishop? No, he doesn't. Does he meet the qualifications of being a deacon? No, he does not. So explain to me how in the next chapter, if you go down at verse 16, we'll start in verse 15. It says, behold, they say unto me, by the way, again, I can't emphasize this enough. This is the next chapter, okay? It's the next chapter. Verse 15 of Jeremiah 17 says, behold, they say unto me, where is the word of the Lord? Let it come now. As for me, I have not hastened from being a pastor to follow thee. Neither have I desired the woeful day. Thou knowest that which came out of my lips was right before thee. Be not a terror unto me. Thou art my hope in the day of evil. So notice how Jeremiah, the same man who was told by God to not have a wife or a son or a daughter, who operated as a priest. Wait, no, I'm sorry. That's incorrect. That was Ezekiel. Was saying that he did not hasten from being a pastor. That means that a man in the Old Testament, unless you think the word pastor somehow has a new qualification now, which, I mean, you'd have to believe that, right, in order to get around what I'm saying. So you have to believe that. So there you go. I'll give you your argument for you, even though it's a joke. Obviously, the word means what it means. Jeremiah said, I have not hastened from being a pastor to follow thee, yet he had no children. And notice how in 1 Timothy 3, the word pastor is not used. It says, if a man desire the office of a bishop then must be blameless. You know what also isn't mentioned there? The word elder. But if you look at Titus 1, it does mention elder. Now, when they read Titus 1, it says, verse 5, for this cause left I thee in Crete, that thou shouldest set in order the things that are wanting, and ordain elders in every city as I appointed thee. The Baptist will look at this and say, yeah, thank you for pointing that verse out. It proves our point, because you literally just read a verse that says that Paul left Timothy there to ordain elders. Except what he's doing is he's ordaining elders into the office of a bishop, okay? What it's really saying here is, again, that they're ordaining elders, which are aged elderly men, into the office of a bishop. Okay, and the passages that they typically use to argue against that are in 1 Timothy 5, which if they read the context would also destroy them. As I've been saying about the Trinity and every other doctrine that I talk about, Christian purveyors of false doctrine will always take you to the verse and the chapter that disproves their heresy or false doctrine. This is, of course, not heresy. It has nothing to do with the gospel, but 1 Timothy 5 says, rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father, the younger men as brethren. So there's a dichotomy of the elder man, father, younger men as your brother. And yet you want to tell me that this is not using the word elder in regards to age? You're a liar. You're a liar, and you're intentionally lying. Unless you're going to hear what I have to say and you're going to be converted, or you're just going to turn the video off and read 1 Timothy 5 for yourself and believe it. But is that really what somebody like this is going to do? Absolutely not. Like, let's be honest. The elder women as mothers. No, wait a minute. I'm pretty sure I've heard quite a bit of Baptist preaching against women pastors. Now, quite a bit, actually. So why is this an elder woman? See, if elder in verse 1 is a bishop, why is elder in verse 2 not a bishop? Because they're liars. That's why. They do the same thing with the word wine. They do the same thing with the word God. They say, well, God here is Jesus, but over here it's not Jesus. Hebrews 1:1, the word God there, that's not Jesus. Even though it's literally just a blanket statement of the God of Israel speaking through the prophets from Genesis to Malachi, that's not Jesus according to these people. Because they're liars, okay? They are liars. Elder means elder every time it's used, and it is indicative of age. Elder means older. Rebuke not an older, but entreat him as a father, the younger men as brethren, the older women as mothers, the younger as sisters. Same chapter, down in verse 17. Let the elders that rule well. Now, you shouldn't have to be told that this is excluding elder women, because you should know the rest of the Bible and use that to encapsulate your knowledge of this. It shouldn't have to tell you, hey, let the elder men that rule well, because women can't rule. It shouldn't have to tell you that again. So when it says, let the elders that rule well be counted worthy of double honor, this is an elder in the church. Perhaps they're not even really a bishop, because it says, especially they who labor in the word and doctrine, which means that there's elders who rule well. And what does it mean to rule well? Are they going around telling people what to do? Are they saying, hey, listen, you better do this? No, that's not what they're saying. When it says that they have the rule, it means that they're determining the soul winning times. They're determining maybe the topics for discussion. They're determining the budget for the mission trips. They're determining the time that the doors get opened. They're determining the time of the baptismals. They're determining all of these things, okay? And as the church grows, the more responsibility is going to have to be at the top. But to have a young man consider himself to be and have the authority and the power of a bishop without the experience of 1 Timothy 3 that only an elder could have, you're going to have a Steven Anderson clone is what you're going to have. And that's exactly what you have in this guy. That's what it is. Because 1 Timothy 3 makes it very clear that a bishop must be blameless, the husband of one wife. Now, if you're 25 years old, yeah, it's easy to be blameless. You haven't really gone through anything. Maybe you've got like 2 or 3 children, maybe 4 or 5 children. I don't know. Maybe you started at 18. That doesn't matter. One that ruleth well his own house, having his children in subjection with all gravity. If your oldest child is 7 or 8 years old, you do not qualify to be a bishop, dude. You don't. Because it takes the experience of dealing with a wife and children and a family and running it and ruling it well and having your children into their teenage years and into their late teen years be a testimony to how you raised your children and how you ran your family. And that is what is going to be looked at to determine if you are qualified as an elderly man to assume the office of a bishop. That makes sense. That makes sense. What doesn't make sense is how somebody like this, who looks like he's a lot younger than me, how, this guy is somehow a bishop. Like that guy, in his mind, he thinks that he's an elder. Like, that's funny. Like, I'm not trying to be a mocker or one that raileth or anything like that, but I'm sorry, that is objectively hilarious. That is just as funny as this pizza face 18-year-old Mormon coming to my door with a name tag that says Elder David. It's like, dude, you look like you got out of Pampers last week. What do you mean you're an elder, dude? Get out of here. All right. So it's a joke. This guy is a Steven Anderson clone. It's the same thing from every one of them, right? They just maybe they can't run their house right. Maybe his wife won't submit to him and he just wants other men to I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. But what I am not speculating about is the fact that what he's teaching is false doctrine. What he is saying is wrong. It's false. And it's laughably false. Okay. Now, the things that he's talking against, he's right. He's right. You shouldn't just have like a random committee of like Luis Mendez, his wife, and, some other people in the church. And it's like, oh, what do you guys think? And it's like, well, depending on whatever, their opinion should be valued, but there should be a committee. Yeah, there should be, but not of laymen's. There should be a committee of bishops and pastors. Okay. Now, Pastor Patrick Boyle, I don't know how old he is, but he looks like he could be considered an elder or a bishop. So I have no issue with that. But you're not a deacon, bro. I do believe that a deacon is an age-restricted position as well. I mean, think about it. If they have authority and they have almost as much authority as a bishop, they ought to have the same amount of experience, at least very close. And if you look in 1 Timothy 3, the qualifications for a bishop are a little bit more. They're a little bit more than a deacon, but not really that much. God holds deacons in a high regard, and they have to have met very high level qualifications that I don't know, maybe he's hit all those. I mean, well, he can't because he's not old enough to have children, not accused of riot or unruly, dude. Because if you have a child under the age of 9, you have a child that I will personally accuse of being riotous or unruly. I'll do it right now. I don't even need to see their face. I don't even need to see. I just tell me their age. And I'll tell you, hey, you're not blameless. You have children that are riotous and unruly because they're little kids. Because you can't be a bishop until you are an elder. And what is an elder? An aged person. That's what 1 Timothy 5 is talking about. So the whole church model thing that they believe is just silly, dude. It's complete. It's a joke. I have other videos about this. I have elder moments about this. I've gone into further detail about this. I just saw this. He just uploaded it because, like I said, I put on notifications and I wanted to respond to it. And if this gets any traction, or if anybody related to this guy has watched this video and gotten this far, I'm genuinely curious in the comment section, where are his videos on the Godhead? How are you a pastor and you don't talk about the deity of Christ? Maybe it's because I typed in Trinity, which again, maybe that's a good thing. Let's see, deity of Christ. Let's see that. Maybe that's God's not your bro. All right. I mean, Hebrews says that he was made like unto his brethren, that he's a brother. So anyway, I don't know what he means by that. But look, when God said, now Zechariah 12, oh, I guess I had watched that before. Yeah, I watched that before because of what's in Zechariah 12, right? Notice where I stopped watching. I watched Zechariah 12 because of verse 10 where it says, they shall look upon me whom they have pierced. That was several years ago. But look, deity of Christ. Let me type in Godhead. Nothing. That's funny, dude. McMurtry's the second video that comes up. Maybe he mentioned it. I don't know. The Spirit of Truth. Oh, that's a good one to click on. Okay, there's something. Romans 1. Oh, good night, dude. But you see what I'm saying? Like, there should be way more content here. Oh, wait, no. Liberty Baptist. For instance, like if you're just to go to like McMurtry's channel and you search up, now you're still not going to find much on here. Trust me, I've looked. But I mean, look, boom, instantly 8 years ago, the Trinity. So it's interesting. There's nothing on their channel with the title Trinity. And honestly, that's a good thing to me. But their church model teaching here is cultish. And that's why I'm rebuking it.